one, things are looking fantastic for Magnus Carlsen right now. I mean, every single move with purpose, and Black is stuck shuffling around.
Yeah. Oh, Ferrugia losing his patience. I was about to say it's really uncomfortable for Black, but ultimately here, his knight is attacked, and where to jump to? I see tricks, I see real pitfalls in Black's future here, Robert. If he jumps back with his knight, White could land tactics such as knight to f5. There would have been nasty pins along the e-file. Instead, knights on the rim. Looking pretty dim, grim, you name it right now. That is the wrong direction. A question mark given to that move. And Robert, it might soon be time for White to go all out and switch play to the other flank, to the king side.
It looks very tempting to go and do that. And if you could imagine the White king being elsewhere, a rook on the h-file may be deadly, as the Black king will be opened up. But that's a faraway dream. And for now, what Alireza may be relying on is some c5 idea from Black. Can I finally gain some space for my pieces? Please let me attack something. So I'm wondering, for Magnus at this moment, can he play a move like b5? Is that too risky? I mean, he's attacking the knight, but maybe he's opening up files in good ways for Alireza.
I like it too. That was the first move that drew my attention as well, Robert. And I think Magnus will be calculating the direct methods, whether it's in the center, kingside. I mean, we talk about space. We've talked about that. Well, I have at least a lot today. And I mean, look at these pawns. Just all of the options. That's the one downside for Magnus. Too much choice, perhaps. And he does go for b5. We cannot blame him there. Maybe not the most accurate move, but putting Ferrugia under immediate pressure. White maintaining the advantage, of course. And now things have changed. You mentioned open lines. Still, it is the d6 pawn that's the big target. And I'm just wondering how White reacts to his weakness on c4. At least Black now has something to hope for, Robert, despite only having 1 minute on the clock.
That was my exact concern. I forgot for a moment the rook was on e2 rather than d2, because then this would look even more powerful. But for the moment, Black can put pressure on c4. Maybe rook d4. It's an odd-looking move, but it does defend that fourth rank. And for Alireza, he's down to 1 minute 6 seconds, David. And this is a very difficult position to find ideas in. And as you mentioned, all those white pawns on the fourth rank, one of them may push. And he gives up c4 because he wants d6.
Wow, Magnus showing just his intentions there. Aggressive intentions. He's giving up a pawn. It does fall with a hit on the white queen. I'm not sure where the white queen will slide. Most natural square, I would say maybe e3 or f3. But yeah, he's zoned in now on the d6 square. Eval bar doesn't approve, but Magnus, he's talked about bluffing before. This was actually given a double question mark, Robert. That's not me. That's the engine, because Black can break out. But how difficult is that with 45 seconds on the clock?
I think d5 is a move that Alireza will, and there he finds it, but I don't think it's the end of the story. I mean, for Magnus, he needs to keep his composure. We've seen him in previous games when he overlooks something. He's like, what's wrong with me? How am I missing that kind of stuff? But the good news for Ferrugia is queen c5 is on the docket. If he can get those queens off the board, no longer are we talking about any sort of checkmate, and Black is a pawn ahead thanks to his latest capture on c4. So this is a moment where Magnus needs to be a bit careful. And okay, we are seeing e5. The white knight can slide back to d4 in most of these positions, David. So still advantage Magnus.
Still advantage Magnus on board and clock, but do not underestimate Alireza, despite having 30 seconds. Yeah, I think we've all known his bullet prowess for years now. He's had some fantastic results. He seems to up his game, Robert, with no time, and now trying to trade knights. Very wise. The black knight might jump back to the defense if need be, towards the king side, if allowed. Really key that white cannot jump into the d6 square, because black can simply snap that knight off. There's a pin along the e-file. Magnus, he's running out of ideas here. I really think he missed this d5 move from afar, and I would probably advocate for dropping the knight back, but black's got a pawn to suffer for. Black's definitely in this fight.
Knight d4, a really tempting first move. Knight d6, as you mentioned, not available. Rook takes d6. That would be a free piece. Knight takes c7, and then bishop takes d5 afterwards. That is something that Magnus can go for if he feels like there will be some winning chances at the end there. I mean, white's pawn structure on the king side, it still is quite advanced, but that can backfire because it could leave his king open. So the time advantage is also being cut into because Magnus knows how consequential this single move will be.
Yeah, I don't like it. I just really feel that Magnus has lost control, and this is a cautionary tale about rushing. Black had no space, had no plans, and Magnus has basically forced Firouzja to find some good moves, and he's going for that latter option you mentioned, Robert, but once the dust settles, once everything is traded off, it's your other point, the fact that the White King might be vulnerable from behind on the second rank, and Magnus is pretty much committed to trying to checkmate Black now, otherwise this all might start to collapse for White.
Still a bit scary for Alireza. Like f takes e5, rook takes e5 might already be the beginning of the end for Firouzja, because the queen and rook line up very nice in the e-file. And if you can't take on e5, is that queen going to come up to d4 next, trying to do the same thing? So the queen steps forward, but 20 seconds remaining, David, for Firouzja, and there are plenty of options here for Magnus to keep things complicated.
Yeah, Firouzja keeps finding fantastic moves, though. I think his plan might be simple, to even just capture this pawn. And as long as the Black King hides on the 7th rank, the rook will protect against any checks on it. And if he takes this pawn, the White King will no longer have the safe hiding spot of h3. So suddenly, again, those checks might come back to bite White. Wow, Firouzja, he definitely plays best with 1 minute on his clock, Robert. It's crazy how he keeps finding the best move every single time, despite the enormous pressure on him.
And I'm just looking for Magnus for ways to play for a win, and it might actually cause him to lose the game. So be really careful at this current turn. He plays queen d3. I was thinking rook d6, but I realized the a2 pawn was also hanging with check. So he keeps the rook defended. As you're pointing out, g6 is loose. And 12 seconds for Firouzja. He makes a mistake here, but what is the knockout? e6?
Oh, that is so difficult, e6, Robert. We're both reacting because that is almost superhuman. Pawn to e6. It's due to the fact that the Black Queen is tied down defending her g-pawn, that she cannot go and grab that. And if White can establish a strong pass pawn, that might just overwhelm the Black army. There's no checks. c2 is covered right now. The Black Queen can check. The White King will slide, and Magnus finds it. He finds the key move. He's winning.
Of course he does. Magnus Carlsen found the key defense. Now he finds what should be a winning move, but still difficulty ahead. Quick note that Wesley So did defeat Denis Lazovic in that Armageddon game. He wins Division 2 and the big prize there. But come on, David, what's going on here? How should White proceed? Because e6 is loose. And f5? He's just thrown all his pawns forward.
Wow, brilliant from Magnus Carlsen. He knows he needed to cut the Black Queen's communication with the e6 pawn. Now he can slowly, surely advance this pawn forward. First he gives a check. I was going to say, eliminate the Black Rook. There we go. Maybe not the most accurate, but still winning. And once the Black Rook is traded, it's the e-pawn that will crown Magnus's glory. And it's just one check. The White King will hide. I'm not sure which square. But Robert, he's on the brink now.
And you see that it's not about the pawn quantity, but the quality. The e6 pawn about to become on the 7th rank. Can he just go e7, or should he trade rooks first with queen d7 to follow?
Ooh, both look very tempting. Magnus with 25 seconds now. Alireza with just 2 seconds on the clock. My first inclination would be to trade rooks, just because I'm scared of a counterattack against the White King. But Magnus, he could well be tempted to push first. Still, just 2 squares away from touchdown, 2 moves away from glory, potentially. Can he trade queens, Robert? Queen to d7, queen to d8 look tempting. You don't want to allow any counterplay, but with queens off, there we go.
Ooh, nice try from Firouzja. 5 seconds from Magnus as well. He's in time trouble all of a sudden, and if the queens are traded, the Black King is in time, so he plays g4, which is a great move. And how Alireza proceeds, I think you can even trade queens, but there's the outside pawn. Wow.
Wow, a few seconds each. Magnus reacts. Has he missed this move? There's going to be a bunch of checks. White is still winning, but Magnus doesn't realize the White King has to run, sprint forward.
He chose the wrong square. Yeah, f2 comes with check. The king goes back to e2, but that was a mistake. Every single obvious-looking move is wrong.
Wow, Alireza had a draw by a miracle there. We'll show that later, hopefully. But Magnus now, the king is going to run behind enemy lines to seek safety. If the checks dry out, White wins. White makes a second queen with check, and it's over. I think we're going to see the last few moves of this grand final of the Julius Baer Generation Cup, Robert.
Oh, only a few checks remain. The White King has snaked out and is helping to promote a new pawn. This has been incredible, David. First, he saves that endgame, that finding that the king could hide in the corner, and now he finds that his king can hide behind enemy lines, and the checks are running out.
Oh, be careful, don't step forward, you would lose the game. Magnus would have been checkmated if he'd walked forward to the f7 square. Now he's zigzagging his way back to safety, but maybe I called it too soon. It's not yet over. He's yet to find the safe haven for his king. He needs to hide behind the black b pawn, potentially. He needs to get in and back and use that pawn as a shield.
and it's almost like checkmate against that white king over there, but it cannot be caught, and the king is doing exactly what you said, David. It is running to the other side. You don't get a new queen for that, but you will get a new queen when that pawn successfully goes to e8, but the checks have continued.
Wow, the checks have continued, but no more, and Magnus Carlsen wins on time, wins the Julius Baer Generation Cup.